Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where right now is 2011 in the evening. And I know, it's kind of late. It's quite late, actually. To be honest, it's really late. It's way later than I've ever recorded in a long while. I think that the last time I recorded this was last year, depending on how you see it, in the middle of January, right around there, when I was actually recording at 1 in the morning, depending on if you see that as really late or if you see that as really early. Yeah, depending on which. Otherwise, I think that this is the latest that I've recorded this year, which I'm kind of happy about. Yeah, I'm kind of satisfied with that result, actually, usually going on before this time. Why is it so late, and why am I actually recording so late? Well, it's because of a couple of reasons. One, I've been in school as per usual. Yeah, been in school and doing all of that good schoolwork as a fine and dandy student, right, as you should do. Second thing is that I'm no longer sick, so I could actually be in school, or at least I don't feel sick, so I didn't feel like I needed to rush home and take the meds. Yeah, I could actually stay in school and there were no problems with that, so looking forward pulling some long hours in school in the future. And third of all, it's been one of them really weird days when everything seems to go your way in a really weird way, if I can explain it like that. And I think that the basis of this is that I set my barriers too low. I set my standards too low, so to say, set my goals kind of too low, because I generally think that there's going to be some sort of resistance every time that you work in a group, either that people haven't done anything, or that they're not going to do anything, or that they're simply just going to be inefficient, or in any other way not work as well as they could if they worked at 100%, so to say. So generally, I put goals for the day a bit lower than they could be. And today was one of the weird reasons, probably because I've, for the first time in a long time, worked with a group where everybody is kind of on the same page for once, yeah? We just blew through that content that I had planned in an hour, and we were in school for several hours, which just meant that, well, when we didn't have any clear goals, or when we had surpassed our goals for the day, so to say, the structure just crumbled down on itself. Sure, we made some more work. We actually walked a considerable distance in the planning phase, so to say, and came up with all different sorts of solution structures and stuff like that. But still, it was kind of weird. I thought that, imagine like this instead. If we had pre-planned goals for this day, we probably would have been able to get further than we actually did. So it's been one of those weird days when everything has gone according to plan, just like I want them, and they still haven't been optimal. Maybe because I haven't planned for everything to go as planned. Pun intended, though. But yeah, sometimes that just happens, just something that you have to live with. So that is probably also why I stayed in school for so long, because we actually got the ball rolling very easily, and it didn't take that much energy to be in school. It was really fun. It was an interesting experience, but that's not why you're here now, is it? No. You're not here to hear me talk about how my day has been rolling on and rolling good forward and so on and so forth with no actual hiccups. No, you're not here to listen to that. You're here to listen about the project, yeah? The interpretation of evil. What is evil? How can evil be? What is actually the thing that we consider to be evil? What is this term when you get down to it? How do I interpret it? And how do other researchers think about it? What do other people have to say about the topic whatsoever? And by doing this, we've been entering a new sub-project within the project, which is the 7 Deadly Sins. Because when you, general theme, right, when you're looking at, well, what is evil, these 7 things generally come up. The people are saying that, well, gluttony and wrath and shame and envy and lust and, all these things come up all the time when you talk about evil. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. If we actually look into them, what will happen then? Will we actually get some conclusive proof of what is evil? And now we have actually done all of that, because today is the mini review for this entire little sub-project, which is why it is a mini review and not an entire review. And in order to actually make this a bit structured, yeah, I have some, cheat points. I have some points written down on my phone that I'm going to try and follow. So the first point of the day, we're going to talk about the lack of self-discipline, because when it comes down to them, let's see if I can remember them all now that I've been covering them over a couple of days and actually reading about them. We have gluttony, we have greed, we have envy, we have lust, we have sloth, we have wrath, and we have pride. Yeah, that's 7. I just thought that I missed one. But yeah, that's 7. That's probably all 7 of them. When talking about all these things, it's quite imminent, it's quite prominent, and it's quite obvious when you look at all of them to see that, well, the thing that all of them lack, or the reason why these things are a problem to begin with, is because of a lack of self-discipline. Yeah? Because it isn't a problem to feel, if we take, for instance, feeling accomplished, yeah? Or reaching a goal, either envy or pride, right? That's not a problem within itself. To manage to get to a goal, to manage to get to where you want to be, because you've been envious of someone else, that necessarily ain't a bad thing. However, the bad thing comes in when you give into envy and you do something just because you're envious of that person. When you give into consumption of something because you're just giving into gluttony. When you don't want to sleep with someone or don't want to interact with someone on a sexual level, so to say, but you still do it because you give into lust. These are kind of the things, yeah. When your self-discipline just goes away, when it fails, when it falters, that is where these sins actually come in. It's been the common theme throughout, right? It's been the common theme throughout all of these things. Another good example is sloth. I mean, it's no problem taking a 20-minute nap if you actually need to. It's not a problem working like a full hour shift. It's not a problem being the CEO of a company and once in a while actually taking a breather, recollecting and thinking about, collecting your thoughts about what you actually have been doing over the course of the week. It's not a problem. It's when you start taking those breaks regularly, when you don't need them, when you don't deserve them. That's where the problem come in, yeah? Sloth, yet again, giving in to this, what should we say, this symptom, this deceased condition. No, but yet again, giving in to the sin in and itself. The problem. The next one is consuming on someone else's expense, because that has also been quite a kind of an overarching thing. So the problem is lack of self-discipline. That is why they kind of exist, because you're giving into stuff. However, what is it that actually connects them to evil? And that is that you're doing something on somebody else's expense, or you're lying to yourself. The two things that we've come up with, yeah. Because the first one is that, envy. I'm saying that I'm going in a direction and I want to go in this direction because I want to do it. However, in all honest reality, I'm kind of feeling bad pursuing this goal because I'm actually only pursuing it because everybody else is. That is the only reason why I'm actually pursuing it. But I keep telling myself that, no, that's my goal. I want to go there, yeah? I want to meet that goal. And hence you're still feeling negatively, but you're trying to tell yourself that it's a positive thing. It is external motivation, but you're really trying to push that it is internal motivation. Hence you're lying to yourself, which is also one of the epitomes of evil as we've come up with it so far. However, the other one is consuming on somebody else's behalf. For instance, if we take the distribution of wealth and the distribution of resources, and that's one word that I've been using a lot, distribution and resources as well. If you think about all the distribution of all natural resources, all food, everything in the world that you can consume in one way or another, when it comes to greed, when it comes to wrath in a sense, when it comes to lust as well, when it comes to gluttony, all of these things, yeah, and envy as well in a way. When it comes to all these things, it's based on that you're giving into a unnatural, unbehavioral consumption behavior that isn't good, right? And it's quintessential for this point. Yet again, trying to throw in those nice words, try to see if they stick, try to see if they fit, try to see if they work, yeah? Because I'm also looking up some different English words, trying to explain and expand English. Anyway, you're seeing this kind of theme that when you talk about gluttony, for example, in particular, and greed as well, you're giving in to this unnatural behavior of consumption, is that you're consuming more than you should. Yet again, as we were stating in that video, let's say that there is a finite amount of resources for everybody on the planet. It's about 100. You consume 110. That means, per definition, that somebody else in the world needs to consume less. Now, somebody else might have consumed less anyway, because they might not utilize all of the resources that is, delegated to them. But that still doesn't give you the reason to consume with over your, so to say, your mark of what you're able to consume or what you're supposed to consume without actually talking to them first. So it's this kind of idea that you're consuming more than you need because you're giving into this, yet again, this unnatural behavior, which tends to make all of this, the distribution of wealth, the distribution of resources in the world all out of whack, yeah. It's all out of whack because it's improportional towards where it needs to be. So let's say that people on the one side of the globe are consuming way too much. That means that the people at the other side of the globe is going to consume way too little in relation to what they actually need. And we can see this as a basis of, Western society and Eastern society actually as well, in a way. Seems to be at a big level there, at a great level. However, in comparison to Africa, if you take Europe to Africa, for instance, there's a huge imbalance in distribution of resources and in the consumption behavior as of is. So that is the basis for what came up with in relation to evil. You're lying to yourself, and the overconsumption, yet again, this overconsumption of you consuming too much on the expense of someone else, that is what makes it evil. What also came up is this idea that if everybody is doing something, for instance, consuming a lot, because the way that society tends to work today is that big corporation that's attained economies of scale, which is meaning that they can produce more, but each individual input per unit is actually less than if they were producing less, which means that it's going to be less expensive to produce more in comparison to before. So let's say that they can produce 110 units for the same amount of price that they could allocate to 100 units previously. That is that they have attained economies of scale. Probably that their variable cost has been lowered in relation to their average cost, or the fixed cost, let's say, which actually can't be changed. However, it's going to be lowered on the amounts of units that you do have. A bit of economics for you, yeah, thrown in there for good measure, because it's good. Anyway, when a corporation has attained this economies of scale, they tend to push more units and more products towards the consumer than they actually need to, which has led to this consumption behavior, this consumption culture that we are into as of today because of capitalism in a way. Some people tend to argue it's because of capitalism. Some people tend to argue that it is because of these sins, that it's because of greed, that it's because of gluttony. But hey, who can really blame us as consumers when corporations are working in this way? Now you can say that everybody should have the self-discipline to say no as well, but yet again, this cultural caging culture is kind of influencing us in a big way. Even if it's so much subliminary or subconsciously, it's still implementing us, and it's still affecting us, having an impact, right? But when it comes down to it, the point that I was trying to make here is that if everybody is consuming in this unnatural behavior, right? Everybody in your social circle, everybody around you, the culture around you is in this way. And we've established that this is evil, the unnatural distribution of resources. Does that make you as a person evil then? Because you're doing what everybody else is doing. And this is kind of an interesting approach towards this entire project. Because usually when people are saying like, well, if everybody else is doing it, if the consensus is that it is right, then it's good, then it's not evil. However, if I just bring you back a couple of steps, a couple of 100 years, say 200 years ago, 400 years ago, I don't really have a number, but it was a while ago, and we can be grateful for that. It was accepted to burn women at stakes. Why? Well, because they were accusing them of being witches, for instance. Just because everybody had the idea or the consensus in society and the culture was that this was the right way of going about the daily routine. Saying that, well, you're a bit unnatural and weird, so we're probably going to say that you're a witch. Now, is that actually good in today's standard? I wouldn't say so. I would say no, that's evil. However, we couldn't see that back then because everybody was behaving in a certain way. Same goes for this consumption behavior today. I'd say just because everybody is acting in a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. It can still be evil. So you just try to bear that with you as you progress in your, reasonings, let's say, about this project or about this matter, because it's something that I feel is really important and really interesting, that just because everybody else is doing something doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. And it's something that is quite obvious to many of you. I'm sure that this is something that is quite obvious to many of you, but yet again, there are people like me who didn't think about this at all when I was starting this project, and now I'm thinking about like, wow, that's really obvious when you're really going into the literature and looking into it. Simultaneously though, it's one of these things where you need to have someone putting it into words for you to actually realize how obvious it is. See what I'm saying here? Because some things can be really obvious even though nobody has actually gone out and said it, and hence you don't know about it even though it's considered to be obvious. This is kind of the idea that I'm into right now, what I've been the victim of, let's say, before realizing this. So just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean that it necessarily is right? This common example that if everybody was going and jumping off a cliff, would you do it too? Would it mean that it would be good? Probably not. And then we're moving into the last point. Wow, I see what I've been writing here, right? And I should probably, even though I'm focusing on a raw format, I probably should have been focusing on this point a bit more because it's going to be so incredibly controversial. So, this last point is religion as a supporting pillar of a society. Yeah, let's just let that one just sink in for a moment. Because when looking through all of these different sins, something that I've come to the conclusion of, or something that I've been concluding continuously while reading it through, and I can tell you from the beginning, I'm kind of biased, right? I had an idea of religion when I went into this. I had an idea of society when I went into this. Did it change? Not necessarily. Did it just become confirmed? Yeah, that's more likely the case. Was that because of confirmation bias that I was tending to drift towards sources that agreed with me, so that I didn't actually encounter sources that, set against my own train of thought? That might be the case. Yet again, that's something that's very hard to do. I was trying to apply source criticism, but I'm still of the same kind of, still at the same kind of view in the same type of mind, so to say. But just bear that with you, that this was kind of my opinion going into this research as well, on this topic as well. And that is that religion is one of the pillars of society. That's something that kind of needs to be there for society to actually work as it does. Simultaneously, it's something that shouldn't be taken too literally, in my opinion, right? And it's something that should be needed to be updated with society as we progress. Because I'm seeing that I only have 2.5 minutes left on the DSLR, so bear with me, because this is going to be a very long and interesting point, concised into like 1 minute. So, pillar of society, because, well, if you're doing something wrong, what it's actually, if you're poor and you're in no state of doing something, like, you have no way of progressing in society. So you're just poor, everything is bad, and you have no family, nobody loves you, you're out on the street, you have no goals, you have no dreams, you're just the bottom of the bottom, there is no way for you of getting up again. Okay, good. We have established the context. Now imagine what is hindering you from actually take from the good people. What is hindering you from actually pillaging the villages? What is hindering you from, well, destroying society as it is because it doesn't fit you? Well, one of the things is that you can go to hell, or you want to go to heaven. One or the other, depending on your perspective, right? Glass half full, glass half empty. Are you afraid of going to hell, or do you strive and achieve towards going to heaven? One of the things that I believe is the core assumptions and the core supporting things in society, that even the people who are poor, so to say, need to, or the people who don't have anything to live for at all, needs to have something to aspire to. And since, mankind has always believed in religion, always believed in this kinds of stuff, there's always been some kind of God that we've been approaching and liking and so on and so forth, or preaching to. That is what makes me come to the assumption that maybe religion is more of a supporting pillar of society more so than a necessary one. It's necessary, yeah, it is, even though, yeah, well, it's necessary, but yet again, it shouldn't be taken too literal, because without it, a lot of society would probably crumble, and it wouldn't have, advanced and developed in the way that it did, and in the pace that it did, because yet again, it kept many troublemakers, in my opinion, away from actually crippling the development of society. Wow, that was kind of fast, because I'm seeing that I have less than a minute left. I would have liked to explain this in an entire video, because I realized that this is one of the things, as I said before, don't say anything online that you can't actually stand for in the end, or at a later date, because it can and probably will be used against you. And I realize now that this is probably one of those things, me saying that religion is just, yeah, as it is, as I stated it. Let's just leave that out. I'll probably touch upon it tomorrow. But for now, that was the mini review on what I've been taking away and what I've been thinking about so far about the project. And now the DSLR is just like, turn it off, 15, 13, 12, 10. So have a nice one, mates. I'll see you tomorrow with probably a bit more of an explanation of what religion and so on and so forth is in sporting to, have a nice one, mates. See ya.